Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Ever wonder where the devil got his horns?
How about those cloven hooves?
Or that pitchfork?
Wasn't he an angel?
No, he was a snake.
No, he's the great red dragon.
No, he's the beast.
He's the prince of this world.
Prince of darkness.
Well, he's the prince of dark.
Good morning, star lovelies. One of my names is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I sometimes go by Keenan Diaz.
And we're the hosts of the brand new podcast, The Devil's Details. What comes to mind when I say Lucifer?
How about Satan?
What about just the devil? How did the big bad of the Western world end up with so many faces? Join us as we dig up, decipher, and deconstruct the devil's many forms throughout history.
Take a guided tour with Dante through the 9 circles of hell.
Or revisit Satan's angsty bad boy years in Paradise Lost.
Learn the ins and outs of a Faustian contract.
Easier than a 1099, but with a hell of a lot more fine print.
Slither on over to The Devil's Details on True Story FM and join us in the diabolic discussion.
Love and hisses. Mwah! Didn't Al Pacino play him in a movie?
Are you sure that wasn't Robert De
I could
Niro?
have sworn it was Tim Curry.
That was Elizabeth
Didn't
Hurley.
he go down to Georgia at some point?
Hey, psst. Hey, you see that Snickers over there? If no one's looking, you should just take it.
No! Don't listen to him, my son. That would be stealing, and stealing is a sin.
Sin Schmin, it's a freaking Snickers bar. You deserve to have it. Sinning really satisfies you.
Repent, my child. Virtue is the only real snack worth savoring. For that candy bar is merely a gateway to nougat damnation. Has this ever happened to you?
Listening to the devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other, and you're not sure what to think?
Then we're here to help. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Tommy Metz III, and this season on All the Feelings, we're examining the 7 deadly sins
You know, the fun ones,
and the 7 heavenly virtues.
which are also a thing. Through personal stories, historical oddities, and way too much embarrassment, we take you on a thrilling journey through all the goods and the bads you hear about in church.
But without all that pesky church stuff. So come join us for All the Feelings Season 9, a sometimes funny podcast about being human. All the sins, all the virtues.
All in one place. Go to allthefeelings.fun to learn more or subscribe to All the Feelings wherever you get your podcasts.
Game over.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Star Wars Generations Podcast. Today we are wrapping up our discussions of Andor, at least for the moment, because frankly, there's going to be a lot to say about Andor. This is going to be a show, I think, that's really going to change the way we think about Star Wars in a lot of ways. That's going to lead to a lot of great discussions, a lot of great questions, both here and on the Superhero Ethics Podcast. Last time we didn't have the full team, but this time we have both Alex and Erin here to talk about Andor. But before we do, I want to drop some news on you all. As many of you know, there's a young Padawan soon joining my own family. We had a baby shower. The house now looks like an exploded IKEA in terms of half-built cribs and bassinets and things like that. And we have a lot of family members coming over. We've got a lot of meals to plan, a lot of things going on like that. And so I'm going to announce that this podcast, as will my other podcast, Superhero Ethics, be taking a hiatus in June and July and possibly August. The arrival of the new one is July 24th. By August, hopefully we have things back set up again, but I heard that a new kid can sometimes affect a schedule a little bit. So we're going to still keep recording episodes. Part of the issue is also that we've gotten really kind of right down to the wire, so I've been having to record an episode and then edit it within like 12 hours and get it up. We want to create a backlog. We want to be able to have, episodes in the can so that when I need to step away or when Erin has finals or when Alex has an important thing for work, that we're all still able to keep giving you content. So we're going to take kind of a summer break. We may be giving you some old episodes. We may just be making it a break entirely. We will continue recording episodes on a semi-regular basis and be able to hit the ground running again in either August or September. So with that being said, Erin, let's start with you. What'd you think of Andor now that you've seen the whole thing?
My experience of the last 3 episodes was pretty wild. It was also the night of I think it's our last day of school. So I was feeling pretty good past the final. Went home, just got drunk as hell, and watched these last 3 episodes. And as you can tell by Alex's snickering, I was texting him about it.
I was getting some wild voice memos about her experience. It seemed like Erin was having a better experience than you and I, Matthew, had combined.
So just so I understand, I am missing podcasts because I am creating new life. Erin missed a podcast because she was hungover. Got it. Okay.
No,
Go-
I wasn't hungover. I was depressed. I don't know what happened the next day. I don't remember.
They
I
go
understand.
hand in
No,
hand.
it's all good. It's all good. I'm just teasing you. You had school stuff going on. Anyway, so either drunk or sober. What'd you think?
I loved it. I really liked that we got some background for Clea and Luthen. I loved that. I'm very curious, which like battle or war do you guys think he was involved in?
I
What do you think?
mean, I don't think it was purposely left ambiguous. I think in like when I first was watching it, we talked about this last time, but I thought that like, oh my god, was Luthen there when like Andor's people got attacked, and I realized no, he wasn't. There was like Raiders and not like the Empire, but it just shows that he was a bad guy and kind of broke with it. So I think it was just one of the many, like we saw in the Solo movie, one of the many Imperial attempts to colonize and commit genocide.
Okay, so you think he was Imperial in that situation?
I thought so.
Okay.
See, I'm not sure the math works out for that because Clara certainly seemed like she was late 20s, 30s by the time we meet her in the 15th year after the Clone Wars. And she was maybe like 7 or 8, maybe 10 at the time that he rescues her. So we certainly know that that was the last like major conflict, obviously, and the first with this like galactic armies, but that there'd been lots of fighting. There'd been fighting on Naboo. There was other places where the Galactic Republic was dealing with issues. You know, a lot of times what the Jedi had to do was intervene in fights between two different groups. So I definitely didn't see Luthen as evil necessarily. I saw him as like a drafted soldier who didn't really want to be there. I think we can make it the Clone Wars if we want, but I thought it would make more sense to me if it was somewhat different. It was some like conflict from beforehand. Reminding us that like, yes, things were there wasn't this galactic wide war like the Clone Wars, but things weren't like 100% perfectly peaceful before then.
Yeah, I just I did a quick little search on it, and like a lot of people seem to think it would most likely have been like the very early days of the Empire, because like the uniforms look Imperial, but like it looks like it's kind of still in the transition period from the Republic. So like either way, it could have been Separatist, could have been Republic, could have been Imperial. I thought it was Imperial, but I think that like I don't know, it's meant to be a little ambiguous. If she was 10 at the time, she would have been what, 25? Well, yeah, 25 in Andor. I guess that could kind of make sense. I mean, am I really supposed to believe that Anakin looks, 19 in episode 2?
Well, yeah, okay. I was just curious your guys' thoughts because I wasn't really sure if we were supposed to be able to like trace the dots on that or if it was just pretty damn ambiguous. But yeah, some of my other big notes, poor Lonnie. He got wrecked.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting that, but also, of course.
And I think him getting wrecked is interesting. And this is something a lot of people wrote into us about. This is kind of a feedback episode as well, with a lot of different thoughts on Luthen. And there's a lot of discussion of how, like, there's definitely been some movement online and from some of the fans of Luthen, like, everyone should just recognize Luthen as a hero, Luthen's a good guy, etc. And I think he definitely goes down as being important and needed for the rebellion, and I love the scene of Cassian defending him. But I love the scene you're talking about, Erin, because I think, although I've seen some people denying this online, I think we're very clearly supposed to know, like, Luthen straight up kills him.
Yeah.
Like,
who was denying this online? What is the other theory?
That he killed himself because he knew he was going to get caught, or that the Empire caught up to him, or something like that.
Interesting.
Because I think people want, I think this happens a lot where we get these morally great characters, but they get kind of a like redemption arc, or like look at how cool they are in other ways, and people want to forget all the moral grayness and be like, no, Luthen's a hero, he's straight up awesome. Which is something I think we'll definitely talk about some today and in future episodes, because yeah, I think that scene was so important of reminding us that Luthen is, yes, he was this wonderful person to Clara, and he had all these reasons for getting involved, and he probably loved puppies at some point in time, but yeah, he still was willing to like tell people, like, to promise to get them out in order to like get them to say everything they need to say, and then kill them so he can get away.
Yeah, it was pretty cold.
Mm-hmm.
Felt bad for his wife and kids.
Yep. Pour one out for him.
Real quick before we move on, I went on a quick Wikipedia search, and according to Wikipedia, he was an Imperial Army trooper forced to commit atrocities before he deserted in 18 BBY. So it would have been the first year of the Empire.
Okay.
I don't know if the maths either, but that's what Wikipedia says on canon. So it's saying Imperial atrocity in the first year of the Empire.
Sounds about right.
Okay. I'm just going by my judgment of Clara's age, and she's probably older than I
No,
think
that's
she is in the flashbacks.
fair. She looks older than 25. But I mean, also, I don't know, maybe she was older when he found her, and she was just so emaciated that we couldn't tell.
That's certainly possible. Certainly, it makes his particular anger at the Empire itself make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What else? What else hit you in those last episodes?
I really liked the stuff. Like, we got that one scene between Krennic and, is it Partagaz?
Partagaz, yeah.
Partagaz?
Yeah.
My notes just said Krennic versus Partagaz. Tough.
Mm-hmm.
Cold as hell. I feel like that's kind of all you need to know.
Oh, Erin. I missed having you on the podcast.
I feel like it was a great scene. We talked about this somewhat over on Superhero Ethics, a podcast I did with Riki, about sort of Cyril coming to this realization of like how wrong he was about the Empire. And that there's all these ideas of like that we think what this is all about is the rules and authority and people following law and order. But I think what Krennic figured out that Pendergrass never really did is that in the end of the day, it's not about the rules. It's about the politics. And can you play things so that you come out okay?
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, Krennic was really good at playing that game until he found someone who's even better at it in Moff Tarkin. But that's, I think you're right. I think Pendergrass is just totally out of his element when going up against Krennic because Krennic's able to blame everything on this guy.
Yeah. He just takes the fall, and they're just like, I don't know, the way things went with the Imperial side of our story, I just kept being like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah.
Lonnie, and then, yeah, the fact that guy just had this short conversation with Partagaz, and then was like, okay, and just walked out.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear the blaster fire, and the stormtroopers like jump to like do something. He just kind of raises his hand, and bows his head for a moment.
Yep.
And I was like, damn. That's dark.
Yeah. And that scene is very much an homage to a scene you see in a lot of samurai movies, but also a lot of like old war movies from like the 50s and 60s about, either the Civil War or the World War I or World War II, where you'll often see like the enemy commander winds up like killing himself because he knows he's about to be tortured by the government or whatever because he failed. And I loved that, like, as he was walking out, I was like, oh, I think I know what's happening here. And then you hear the shot, and you're like, yep, okay.
Yeah. I watched the last 3 episodes at the same time as like my childhood best friend who's also a really big Star Wars nerd, also named Alex. He's the one that went to Japan with me. But yeah, he literally just texted me one word when that happened. He went, or I guess he went 2 words. He wrote, "Damn, seppuku."
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I guess that sums it up, man. Yeah, sure does.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I thought, and we talked about this a little bit, Matthew, but I just want to reiterate. I think it was kind of, when I first saw it, I was like, damn, off screen. Like, I kind of wanted to, like, I don't know. It was such a dark show. I like wanted to see something happen, but then I thought it was actually way more powerful just hearing the shot and then the subtle movement of like the stormtroopers like lurching towards them, and the other Imperial officer whose name I can never remember, just putting the gentle hand up, like just like, no, like respect the man's seppuku.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we can't not talk about little Miss Dedra.
Yeah.
Locked away in Narkina. Yeah. Are we to believe?
It's not Narkina. It's Matthew pointed this out. It's a female equivalent though.
Yeah.
Oh, right, because Narkina was all men.
Well, and like you think about what the Empire's doing, like they're mass producing prisons all at the same time. we talked about that some in The Mask of Fear, that it says like there's drastically increasing the amount of prisons that they have. And like here in the United States, when there's an explosion in the building of prisons, both in like the 50s and before then, but also like in the last 20 years when for-profit prison became a thing, like there's one or two like sets of blueprints that have just been repeated over and over again. And, you know, if you figured out this idea of the hot floor and all that, or even just these kind of cells, like, yeah, you build it over and over again. So that I think is certainly the idea. Is like, it's not Narkina itself, but like this prison has a similar design and probably similar rules and similar ways of, you know, screwing with the heads of the people who are imprisoned there.
Yeah, she could be helping build the Death Star too.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just the look on her face as she puts her head in her hands, and that scene where Krennic puts the finger on her forehead, and it's just such a scene of like mocking her and him having so much fun in what has to be the worst moment in her life. I just loved that scene so much. It was so petty on his part and so ridiculous and over the top and so perfect.
Oh, Krennic, our favorite diva.
Right? He has to be the one.
I would just like to read one not very embarrassing text Erin sent me about the episode as she was watching it. In all caps, she said, "The Krennic portrait is giving Vogue."
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, from my understanding further, was just that, quote, he was serving face like an absolute diva.
He really was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on this statement?
I don't know if I remember the exact moments. I feel like it was maybe
it was
at
the final
end.
flashbacks. Yeah, the final
Yeah,
flashbacks.
yeah, and they were giving like the here's where everyone is now, and it was just a side profile of Krennic, and I was like, you know, how many girls would kill for a profile like that, like a fucking jawline, like to look like he should be on the cover of Vogue, just like the drama of it all. Like I said, he's a diva, and he got his diva moment where he could just serve face. Excuse me. Where he could just serve face as they're doing this like pan over him and what he's doing. That's all. He just looked incredible. Yeah, ready for the gala.
I will say all of it also to me adds. We're going to talk in a follow-up episode for members. It may actually be for everyone since we're taking this hiatus, but about the how it feels watching Rogue One after having seen this. And I'll say one thing was that to me, like, it makes me feel like Krennic wearing a cape has to be very related to Vader wearing a cape. And it's that sort of thing of like the person who is very much a like, oh, this other person does this thing, I'm going to do it because they must do it to want to be cool. Whereas I'm going to do it because I want to be cool. Whereas Vader is just like, no, he just is cool. You know, it's not like Vader is cool. Krennic wants to be cool. And that's the difference in how they wear their capes. And yeah.
Krennic really wants to be cool. And I mean, he was honestly way cooler in the coolest scene he had was him in the prison cell. He was just like, I mean, it wasn't cool per se, but like he was just like scary. In the past, I was always like, you think you're scary, but you're just a freaking doofus.
Wait, you mean the interrogation room with Dedra?
Yeah, that was like his one scary moment.
Oh yeah.
I guess like in Rogue One a little bit when he first finds Galen, but like in general, he just kind of seemed like a bully, a wannabe bully.
He employed in Rogue One a power that had never been used in the Star Wars universe before. Sarcasm. That whole line of like, oh, she's back from the dead. It's a miracle. Like we never heard that from Star Wars villains before. It was great. At least not in live action.
Han Solo has never been sarcastic?
Not from a villain though. Not the same way.
Oh, from a fair,
you know?
fair.
I suppose you're far too trusting is similar, but like, you know, it's there's just sneering quality to Krennic that is just so good. So one other thing we got from a number of people in the comments, especially from Riki Hayashi, my co-host over on Superhero Ethics, it is a sense that, and if you listen to things Tony Gilroy has said, really speaks to this, that this really should be in many ways seen as the redemption of Kathleen Kennedy, among other things. I know a lot of people don't like her because of their perception that she's the one who makes things woke and all this kind of nonsense. And you know, I think it's fair to say that maybe some of the blame of the sequel trilogy not lining up falls to her as sort of the director of everything. But Gilroy has said a number of times that he didn't want to do season 2. He didn't think he'd be allowed to go as far as he wanted to go. That there were a number of things that she helped him fight for to put it in. And let me just kind of read exactly what he said. The Gilroys rightfully should take a lot of credit, but I don't think you can ignore whose watch the show happened under just because it doesn't fit a particular narrative. Especially in this area of studio meddling on the Marvel side, seemingly tanking a lot of their post-COVID stuff. And we have stories about the kind of stuff the studio did meddle in with this show. Marva says, fight the Empire instead of fuck the Empire. Tony Gilroy had to fight for Cassian's final line to Cyril, who are you? A studio doesn't offer notes like that and then just completely misses the subtext of the entire show. They didn't slip the message through the cracks. The studio understood the message and greenlit it, talking about just how political this show was and how much it was a reference to things going on. And there's a number of instances where Kathleen Kennedy apparently is on record and Gilroy's on record of saying that like she just let him cook. You know, so much of the things that you think you'd have to get approval for, he just got to do what he wanted to do. So
And I think that's.
Go ahead.
I just think that's really important when you're trying to like tell a piece of media like this, especially something that's like so dark, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think it's easy to throw in like dark themes and then not have a genuine payoff, kind of like use it as a scare tactic or just a way to like get audiences' attention. But I feel like this one was like very intentional with the way that it portrayed the darkness. I mean, I'm for instance thinking of like the riot, right? The massacre of the Gorman, people. And how they had the sniper that was planning to take out an Imperial soldier all along.
Right.
And just like how, for me, someone who's not like, I don't study wars. I don't know much about like political espionage and spies and assassinations and this and that. Like it's not a particular interest of mine. So yeah, I hadn't ever really thought of that being a thing. Is like, it makes perfect sense. Like, yeah, you take out your own person to give yourself the reason to brutalize someone else.
Right.
That's why there was so much. I'm not giving credence one way or another to the following theory, but that's why there was a lot of buzz online on whether the sniper that shot at Trump was potentially planted by the party to galvanize the voter base. Some people very from because it's a tactic that has been used historically to change minds or to start a war, start a conflict. I mean, dating back to like, you know, the shot heard around the world at the Battle of like Lexington and Concord, like, you know, it's like some people will think that like that was done on purpose to like to spark things. Like, I mean, there's just for centuries it's been a tactic and of like, you know, evil regimes, fascist regimes, but I think like sometimes even rebel regimes, like it's just it's horrible, but it's like when they need a conflict to start, especially to change a message, it's employed more often than not by the fascist regimes.
Like one thing I thought was a really brilliant way of squaring the circle of having them want to both, and you and I talked a little bit about it, Alex, but I'll kind of bring in Erin to it as well, of like, you know, wanting to honor the things that happened in Rebels while still allowing them to have their own version of Mon Mothma's escape and her speeches, is to say like, yeah, the Rebels were doing it to have their version of propaganda, to have their version of the best story they can tell to get people against the Empire. And the example from our own world that I love to tell about this is, Erin, you've heard of the Boston Massacre, I'm sure, right? Do you have any idea how many people died at that?
No.
4. Or maybe even 3. It's some very low number. But yeah, the point being that like you hear that word, you're like, oh, dozens died, hundreds died. You know, 4 people is important, and like it's important to their families, obviously. But like a massacre sounds a lot worse. And I think and I just loved how they showed that. So so I just kind of want to bring up that point that Riki had made about that this is something I think we can look at as like, yeah, there's a lot of great minds that went into this, but clearly Kathleen Kennedy had a lot to do to make this happen.
Yeah.
What else? What other ideas do you want to talk about, either from listeners or from your own guys' reflections on the show?
I said a lot of what I wanted to say. Jesus, say that again. I said a lot of what I wanted to say last week. So I don't know, Erin, do you have anything else you like felt really strongly that you wanted to talk about from those last 3 episodes, especially, or like the show as a whole, like the impact on Star Wars, or Andor having a child? Do you have an opinion on that?
yo, I forgot about that. Holy shit.
That was what we call a moment.
Yeah, Erin like looked around like I was fucking with her for a second, and then was like, "Wait."
I will say, I want to hear Erin's thoughts on this, but I'll just throw out, there's a theory going around online that it's not Cassian's kid. That someone else, possibly Callus, who would be Fulcrum by this point and be involved with all of them, that he like came to Bix in her moment of sadness, and that's who's the father of that kid.
Get
Which is
the fuck out of here. Callus and Zeb are in love.
Yeah, it's
That's
such
facts.
a stretch. Anyway, but Erin, back to the actual question. What did you think of the adorable little Cassian baby?
Wow. I think that's funny because I was gonna bring up as one of my last things, like just the pain of, I think it was what's her name?
Which one?
What's Mon Mothma's cousin's name?
Oh, Vel.
Vel. Thank you.
Val.
Val or Val?
Val.
Vel.
Yeah, Val.
It's VEL.
I thought it was VAO. I don't know.
No, it's not. Anyways. Right. When Val kind of had asked Cassian something along the lines of like, oh, like, are you thinking about getting back in touch with Bix? And he was like, as soon as I'm done with this, like as soon as this last conflict is over. And
Right.
It's like, you just know.
Mhm.
Fuck. And then you see the kid and you go, extra fuck.
Yeah.
Double fuck. Yeah. Damn, I can't believe I forgot about that. I can't believe I didn't make a note about that. Is actually what I can't believe.
There was a lot going on. It was a big, powerful, like, I was kind of in tears at that point already, so.
That's true. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I really liked that we got Nemec's speech again back at the very end to kind of bring everything full circle. And I never had put together that he mentions and names like the mask of fear that keeps us under control.
Yeah.
And that's, as we know, the name of the book that we read for our book club. And it's a very, very interesting deep dive into like the politics and the stories of Bail Organa and Mon Mothma. And I just liked that they kind of drew that together with how the book had just released, and then showing anyone who watches the show and has read the book, showing us very obviously like, oh, this is the connections. I really liked that. And I think just his speech was so powerful the first time around, having it again as we see where everyone's at right before the conflict begins is crazy.
And I think it was so perfect how it was done, because I think part of what made Purdigast so good at his job is that he understood how people's minds worked. He understood how propaganda works. And he understood what was needed to like crush rebellious spirits and things like that. And I think therefore he probably more than anyone else, he hears that and he recognizes that everyone's hearing it. And I think it's when he knows they've lost. And it's funny, he doesn't know about I don't think he even knows about the Death Star, but even if he does, he surely doesn't know it's going to be blown up. And yes, like if the Death Star had blown up the base on Yavin 4, I think clearly the rebellion's over for a while. But with that speech out there and with other things out there, like, fascism doesn't last. It just never does, because the desire for freedom almost always comes back. And actually, as I say that, I up until now has not, but certainly I think it's found other ways of surviving that are now more challenging to us today. But I think Purdigast recognizing that as he hears that speech, or just how well it's laying out, it's showing the lie to all the things he's lying about. And I don't think, as some people say, that he has an ethical change of heart or thinks he was wrong. I think he just realizes he's lost. And it is his job to stop this. He has not done so. And he can be tortured and punished and be part of the anxiety of the next 10 years of fighting this, knowing Vader is always over his shoulder, or he can just end it now. And I fully understand his decision. I'll just say on the topic of the baby, I think Alex and I had a lot to say about it last week. I just want to highlight that I think, obviously on this podcast, we're trying to focus on like the happy parts of the conversation. Not the happy in terms of like we all have to agree, but like there's a lot of toxicity in the Star Wars fandom, but there's a lot that isn't. There's a lot of people who are really trying to have good faith conversations about this. And that I think if you want to figure out who's the bad faith people in the Star Wars fandom on all sides and kind of weed out the chaff a bit, dig into that discussion about the baby and then just start filtering out people, start blocking people, because I've seen an awful lot of folks just taking arguments on one side or the other in very bad faith. And, I think it is perfectly legitimate to say that you don't like the decision that that the writers made of showing her with the baby, without it meaning you're critiquing single mothers, or that you're saying it's bad to be a mother, or that like any of that nonsense that's out there. Or in the same way that like it's possible to say that you like that she did this, without saying that therefore you think all women are supposed to just like stay at home and be mothers instead of fighting in the rebellion and stuff. Like, there's just all sorts of nonsense on all sides. And I think there is a really legitimate debate about it. I personally am someone who is not a huge fan of that scene, and other people are, and all that's totally fine. And we went into the details of it last week. But yeah, just want to say, like, if you want to see an example of Star Wars at its worst, Google that discussion and then use your block button very freely.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. As a closing thought, I just want to say I look back through my text with Alex. I didn't watch it until Saturday. That's why I didn't hop on the podcast on Wednesday, because I didn't have the
I remember
ability
you had like
to watch it.
You had a big school thing going on, and
Yeah.
a lot of stuff was happening. I get it. Totally cool. Well, for our listeners, thank you so much. This is kind of a short episode. We wanted to kind of catch up with some things. We're going to do another episode soon on how Rogue One seems after this. I'm not sure when it's going to come out. But as I said, I'm sure we're going to have some other last things to talk about as well. Alex, any last words you want to close with?
Yeah, I have one last question just out of curiosity, and I would actually be interested in viewers also like writing us and telling us what they think about this. But do each of you have like just short answer your favorite episode from the season? I think mine was the one where Gorman, like, who are you? The one where Gorman's actually like the actual riot occurs.
I think it's hard not to pick that episode because it's one of the best episodes of television that I've seen. It's really well put together.
Yeah.
I did, however, really, really enjoy. It was the final episode. No, where we got Mon Mothma's escape. Is that right?
That was the episode right after that, the final episode of that arc. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was episode
9.
9, right before the last arc.
Yeah.
I really liked that episode.
Yeah. I think that one was my favorite, and probably in part because it rang so true. And as a number of people pointed out, like, this show was mostly like written in 2023, 24. So ascribing like the things that have happened in early 2025 is directly referencing what's in the show. It is probably not accurate, but clearly a lot of the things that, if you want to say it's critical of the Trump administration, like all the things that are happening were in Project 2025 that we've had access to for a few years. But for me, watching a number of senators really, but especially one Senator Mon Mothma, decide that she has to speak out and name the fact that the Emperor has no clothes, even though it puts her at great personal risk. Because we live in a world right now where people who have the power to do that, I don't think they would face the danger that Mon Mothma would. We're not quite at a point where senators are being arrested and killed. But, government leaders risk losing the next election. They risk losing the money they get from lobbyists and the comfortable positions. They risk losing, public fame and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, judges are having their lives threatened. And, like, it's scary. I get that. And it's easy to say someone else should do something scary. But I'm really embarrassed and horrified that so many of our politicians aren't able to do that. And so watching Mon Mothma, who does face something much worse, do that, make that decision, and be okay with it. Yeah, I think that is... The Gorman episode, I think, is what I would say is the best episode of the show, but I think that one was my personal favorite because I just wanted to cheer the whole time.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. This has been great. Thank you to our listeners. Like I said, we're going to be back with more probably in 2 months. We'll probably still keep dropping episodes every now and then, but we're really going to hit the ground running again either in August or September. Thank you all so much. Please stay subscribed. Please keep talking about Star Wars with us in all the places, our Discord, our social media, and all that. And most importantly, may the Force be with you.
Stay classy, Canary.
You didn't kill that boy because it's a war. You killed him because he saw my face.
Yeah.
Sane quote to end on.
It's a good one.
Dark.
Good one.
I know that's what they want in the background of their rap songs.
White girls chomping.
Yes. Chomping at the bit.
Hey, we've got our new tagline for the podcast. Anyway,